Ka pai, me te mihi atu ki a koutou, kua whakarauika mai i runga i te karanga o te pōnei, nau mai haere mai. Te tika me tīmata i tētahi karakia, nā reira, me tōhunga mahuna, ki te taiao ki ngā ātoa o tēnei whenua o wēnei wai, nei te mihi atu ki a rātou. Tēnei tara o rangi nui e tuake nei, tēnei tara o Papatuanuku e takoto nei, tēnei tara o rangi rau a ka papa e takoto nei kia rarau te tipu ai o tāne ki raro ko tēnei te pō, nau mai te ao. Karangatia te ao e piri, karangatia ko tāne e piri e tata whakamaua kia Tina, Tina,
Ina,
haumi e hui e tai ki
ai
e.
ki
Kia ora, thank you very much for the honor of starting us off. Assalamu alaikum to everybody and welcome, no mai. And I'm going to pass the rākau over to our host, Anjum. Thank you, Tāhono and Anjum, for hosting the kōrero. Appreciate it. Over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Tina. And welcome to all our participants for joining us this evening. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to give you as much notice as we would have liked, but very happy that those of you who are joining can do so. And we are recording the session, so it will be available hopefully in a couple of days for those that weren't here. So this webinar series has been focused on US-China tensions and thinking about where we should be placing ourselves within that. And it has been based on Indigenous perspectives. So the first webinar focused on Indigenous speakers from Taiwan and as well as Tina Ngata. And we had missed in that seminar a Uyghur perspective. And as Rizwangul hadn't been well, we decided to put on the second session so that we could give time for that. But I do want to acknowledge Bali Nangamulan and Brian Hioe, who were speakers in the first session. And I quickly will let you know that the session is hosted by ourselves, Indigenous Pacific Uprising, Asian Supporting Tino Rangatiratanga, Uyghur Solidarity Aotearoa, People Against All Imperialisms, as well as andIsland. And before I go to introducing the speakers more fully, I just want to note, as I did in the previous webinar, that what we're talking today about are the actions of governments, whether it's the US government or the Chinese government, and we do not condone any racism against Chinese people living here in Aotearoa, and anything that's said here should not be taken as a reason or excuse for any such racism towards any community. Actually, these are socio-political matters that sit in the realm of government. So the way that is going to work today is Tina is going to make some introductory remarks, then we'll move on to Rizwangul for her presentation, followed by Tina making some concluding remarks, and then we do have a Q&A function, so please pop your questions as they come along in the Q&A questions, in the Q&A bit section, and we will try to make time for those at the end. So Rizwangul NurMuhammad is a PhD student studying Uyghur identity and his family currently incarcerated as part of the mass detention of Uyghurs in East Turkestan, also known as Xinjiang. And Tina is a Ngāti Porou mother of two from the east coast of Te Ika a Māui. Tina's work involves advocacy for environmental, Indigenous and human rights. This includes local, national and international initiatives that highlight the role of settler colonialism in issues such as climate change and waste pollution, and promote Indigenous conservation as best practice for a globally sustainable future. So those are our speakers. I'll pass over to you, Tina, and then we'll hear from Rizwangul.
Good on, Jim, and thank you again to you, to Tā Hono, to Ipu, to Asian Supporting Tino Rangatiratanga, to all of our organisations and groups that are supporting this discussion. These are quite critical discussions for us, and just noting we are at a critical juncture in history, really, and I can't pretend to know the Uyghur situation. So we're really honoured and grateful, Rizwangul, that you can join us because Indigenous practice is about hearing from the voices on the ground, hearing from people's lived experiences and that of their families as well, and honouring and uplifting those voices as that's how we express our solidarity, one of the main ways in which we express our solidarity. And so I'm really grateful for that. As I said, I can't pretend to know the situation, but here's what I have seen and what we do know within the global Indigenous community. We know that the Indigenous struggle is a collective one, so we don't ever leave anyone behind. And we know also who routinely shows up at these spaces of Indigenous rights gatherings, and we're very familiar with what happens in those spaces. We also know and become very familiar with the behaviours of colonial states. And so, for instance, it's common knowledge within the global Indigenous political space that New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and so-called United States, and I should say so-called Canada as well, have all operated in a way that is anti-Indigenous. They use their transnational power to suppress Indigenous rights. For those that go to those transnational spaces, I will say we also routinely note the pattern of member states like China, but also Russia and others who go to those spaces and declare upfront that there is no such thing as Indigenous peoples in China. And in fact, that all Chinese people are Indigenous to China, which means that nobody is Indigenous. And they say that even as they expand their borders into the regions of other areas, and then, in a sense, consume other areas into this idea of everybody being an Indigenous Chinese person. And Indigenous peoples, of course, recognise that practice because that's also been done to us over in different ways over time as well. We also know that colonialism is an economic project, and the dominant form of colonialism that has come to surround the world, yes, it's Western colonialism and Western imperialism. That said, it is not only Western nations that operate or operationalize that form of colonialism and imperialism. And so the Western imperial economic project has been operationalized by many nations, both Western Bloc nations and non-Western Bloc nations. And what we know also as a Pacific nation is that across the Pacific there is a form of, you could say, economic imperialism with the Belt Road Project, and a strong grip, an economic grip on many island nations that is underpinned by the economic investment of infrastructure across the Pacific area. And we also know that even though traditionally our allies, our political allies in the international space may be Western Bloc nations, but we are geographically positioned quite close to China and have a number of trade relationships that are dependent upon it, that are tied into China or tie us into China. And as geopolitical tensions rise between one of our dominant government allies, I should say, colonial allies, which is the so-called US, and China, we're getting pushed into this position where we're almost being told that we need to choose a colonial oppressor, like pick your colonial oppressor and take sides between the two. When actually the Indigenous position is, and the other one is, how about no colonial oppressors? And so, and so, it's within this context that we come to this discussion, a context where we are heavily tied into China economically, geographically. We have strong immigration relationships also with China, long-standing historical relationships with China. But as Indigenous peoples, we also hold relationships with groups and communities who routinely show up to our community spaces and speak their truth about oppression at the hands of the Chinese government. And we respect those voices as well. So now that we are in this very crucial, as we said, juncture in history, it's important that we take all of those aspects into consideration as we seek to position ourselves as a nation built on Indigenous lands, working through our own colonial issues, understanding that that also requires Indigenous solidarity. And so these are some of the issues that I'm looking forward to kind of mulling over while we listen to you speak today, Rizwangul. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you again, Anjum, and Tahono also for hosting us on your platform. And I will pass it over now. Kia ora. Nau mai.
I thought of like how my impression firstly when I came to New Zealand back in 2010. So that time when I came, I newly know about the Maori culture, Maori values. I was surprised to find so many values. For example, you respect elderly, you have such a strong, like you emphasize family bond, society, care for each other, sibling relationship, a lot of values actually we share. And also I noticed that Marae, some of the designs actually so close to like what we see as our cultural symbols. So I was really surprised. At the meantime, I also noticed that some of your experience under colonial power is actually quite similar to ours. That was back in 2010, and then the genocide started at later 2016. For 2 years, I couldn't speak anything about anything, brother, family, everything. But when the Christchurch attack happened, I lost my dear friend Linda Armstrong at the attack. And then I was like, woke up. It was a waking up call for me. Anyone can lose anyone anytime. So I could no longer bear the guilt in my side. I had to speak up, my brother. So since then, I have been speaking up, even though there are so many, like, unpleasant things, intimidation, this and that. But I believe that I'm on the truth. I'm speaking from my personal experience. So that motivates me, keeps me ongoing. And also I feel relief, less guilty because I'm speaking on behalf of those voiceless. So this is just a quick personal reflection before I start my presentation. My presentation is a bit long, and it's a bit heavily content. So if you would like to stop me anywhere, you can say, you can stop me. Otherwise, I will continue. Okay, you have the freedom to stop me. I will speak a little bit faster so I can cover the content. But I don't have to finish them all if you have very limited time. Yep. So my name is Rizwangul, and then the ethnic name, our name of our ethnicity is Uyghur. Many Chinese people, they would say Uyghur, but the correct pronunciation is U, starts with U for umbrella, Uyghur. So I'm from East Turkestan. It's also called Xinjiang since China took over. The land size of East Turkestan is 6 times of New Zealand. The population is 7 times of New Zealand, but we don't really have a like exact statistics. But hopefully one day. So let's start from how the social scoring system works back in East Turkestan. So then you can understand how does it feel as an Uyghur. So if you would like to, I mean, I will, this is a bit kind of exercise. If you feel comfortable, stay in there, but otherwise you can stop. If it's too much for you, you can stop joining, but just listen. So just guess that you have 100 score, okay? You will understand what I'm saying as we go. So just guess that, assume that you have 100 as a score. So you take out -10 if your age is between 15 and 55, and then take -10 again if you are being Uyghur ethnic people. In this exercise, you can pretend you are an ethnic Uyghur because we are experiencing what is really happening in East Turkestan. Okay, so first, if you're between if you are age between 15 and 55, take out minus. If you are Uyghur, take out -10. And then if you're praying daily, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or any other religion. If you are praying, take out minus. And if you have studied the religion, any kind of faith, take out minus. And if you're teaching children at home, take out minus. And if you are having a passport, if you have a passport in your possession, take out minus. Take out minus, take out 10. Okay. So if you are visiting one of the 26 countries, take out 10 again. So those countries include Afghanistan, Algeria, Azerbaijan, Egypt, Indonesia, Iraq, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Libya, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Tajikistan, Thailand, Turkey, Turkmenistan, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. If you visited one of these countries, take out 10. -10, okay? And if you have any association with foreign country, if you visited or your family visited, or if you have someone that you have connection overseas, take out 10, -10, okay? Then if you belated return to China, so if you visited overseas and then you come back, you take out 10. And if you're unemployed, take out 10. I don't know how much how much score you have left now, but this is how Uyghurs are scored. If you still have a score between 80 to 100, you are trustworthy. You are okay for now. And if you have left with score between 50 and 70, you are normal, but it's like under the it's a bit dangerous to be honest, but it's so-called normal. But if you have score left under 40, you are untrustworthy. What is the result? You will be targeted for investigation and potentially ended up in internment camp. So this is how the scoring is implemented in East Turkestan onto Uyghur people to control them. So this is not something that I make up, but this is reported in the report. It's academically researched as well. So can anyone tell me if you guys have any score left under 40?
I was 20.
Who is that? Tina? Is that
It's
you?
Tina. It's Tina. I was 20.
Wow. You are under arrest. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm under arrest. Oh, goodness.
You're under arrest. 20 is dangerous.
Mm.
Yeah, I think if I am there, I would be also like that. Maybe even 0, even -10, I would left.
Rizwangul, while you're doing that, I have a question if it's not too,
Yeah,
so I
sure.
don't want to interrupt while you're doing something, but have the Chinese government ever provided a justification for why your mere existence as an Uyghur loses points on their social scoring system?
I wish we had the explanation, but it's not the practice that China would give you. Like, if you are arrested, you are not actually allowed to make inquiry. Okay. And if you are sentenced, you don't have any rights. You don't have any opportunity to even make inquiry to request lawyer for yourself. It's just like my brother, how he was arrested back in January 2017. And there has been no official statement, no arrest guarantee, nothing, no explanation why he was arrested. Millions of Uyghurs, especially those who are at the like labor age, 15 to 55, they have been arrested without any trials. So I wish we have explanation, official explanation for many things that is happening, including this scoring system, but it's not the case in Chinese situation. If they say this is the way, you have to follow it. You don't have the rights to make inquiry. So this is a trustworthiness assessment form. So this is how many Uyghurs, even though like those who are read Quran a couple of years ago, those who stopped drinking, even stopped drinking is called religious practice, Okay, that's good. This is exact word that Xi Jinping said. He ordered that when you treat Uyghurs, you have to act with absolutely no mercy. Yeah. So, and then, what is their intention is here is that break their lineage, break their roots. This is also the exact phrases we got from the Chinese officials. So they would like to break us, not only our culture, but our existence. And the situation is that either you live as a Chinese, you change yourself into Chinese, or you die. No middle way. Next, please. And this one will go a little bit faster, Anjum. So you see what is happening there. We can talk about it from many aspects. Name it, like forced child separation. 800,000 Uyghur children now under Chinese state orphanages where they don't speak their Uyghur language, they don't practice their culture, they don't allow to go home and visit their families, even they are. And why they are orphanages? Because their parents are detained. So there is an invasive homestay, organ harvesting, police state, forced labor, demolishing mosques, sterilization, and the tiger chair, for example, this tiger chair and the cell bosses. This is the approach that they have been like how they have been torturing the prisoners. And this is came out from the camp survivors testimony. So for example, here demolishing mosques, there have been so many mosques demolished that some mosques have been changed into pig farms. In Islam, the mosques is a place for worship. In Islam, we don't eat pork, we don't drink alcohol. But as a humiliation, some mosques were turned into pig farms, some mosques were turned into bars. Just few has been left to showcase that, okay, we still have mosques here. Those mosques have been becoming tourist places. And also for those like groups that like Chinese government organized to showcase so-called peace, harmonious society there. So those groups will be brought to those only selected few mosques and see that, okay, yeah, they are free to still practice their religion. Yeah, you can go to the next one. So, I mean, in your situation, we have so many, like, things happening that you cannot stop, to be honest, to speak about if you go into too much detail. So in even 2022, UN report came, and they are detailed, the abuses, in determination camps. As you can see, this girl on the picture, she's still underage, under 18, but she was detained. And the mother, she was detained. And our brothers, like my brother, they have been detained. Go to the next, please. And this is something that we see the hope. There are Chinese people starting to know the truth, starting to know what is we really going through under the CCP and oppression. And you see, they are also starting to be the voice of Uyghurs, which is really good. And I really would like to hope, I really would like to see that this voice only becomes stronger. Next, please. What have been the challenge? Okay. Many friends and many like normal, I'm sorry, audiences like yourself came and asked me that, how come, how come you're, I mean, they said, we don't understand because we don't have much information that, what is going on in Xinjiang. Is it really going on, the genocide? And then, this is how we explain. First of all, we have so many challenges. First of all, disinformation by Chinese Communist Party. They have been organizing groups, terrorist groups, visiting groups, consisted of selected, especially government officials from Middle East, especially. And then they showcase, as I mentioned earlier, few mosques, few markets, that showing them that, okay, there is nothing happened. We only countering terrorism. And there is a misinformation by CCP has been paying influencers, either be from Pakistan, either be from, Muslim countries, including Pakistan. Recently, one girl did that, including influence from Western countries. And of course, government officials, once they visit, they kind of, share their reflections, and it becomes misinformation. There is nothing happening like that, And then no information. On the other side, no information coming out from East Turkestan on daily basis. In Palestinian situation, we have information coming out on daily basis, videos, voice messages, pictures coming out of it on daily basis. But in our cases, no. China, CCP is controlling the information. Even for me, for example, my basic rights of having contact with my family has been violated. I don't have contact with my mom. I haven't heard her voice since 2020. And I haven't heard anything from my brother yet since 2017. Many Uyghurs, they are in the same situation. No information coming out. And many Muslims, they think that this is USA narrative, because USA in fight with China. But USA just happened to be the one of the countries that, acknowledged it is as a genocide, but they haven't done much to support Uyghurs, to be honest, in both inside and outside. But we appreciate that USA acknowledged it is a genocide, and they have been also approved several policies that, take China accountable. But again, there are so much to do. This is still not enough, especially like, Uyghurs, because of the misinformation, disinformation, lack of information, Uyghur voices have been becoming more vulnerable with the impact of the transnational repression, of course, and become more weaker but we are still keeping on, keep speaking up at any chances that is available for us. Please go to the next slide. This is my brother. As I mentioned earlier, he's one of the millions of Uyghurs who have been detained. He was detained in January 2017, and yeah, and then this is a campaign. I'm collecting signature to bring some impact. I know it has been quite still quite weak voice, but we do what we can do. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. You may ask how we can help in New Zealand. Take any chances, talk to Uyghur people, be the voice of Uyghurs, and stop buying from Shein and Timo. At least this is what we can do, because Shein and Timo is related to forced labor. There are thousands of Uyghurs, including underaged Uyghurs. They have been brought to innerland cities to be targeted. Forced labor, cheap labor. They have been producing products that is sold by Shein and Timo and many other factories, but we clearly know it has been investigated that Shein and Timo is related, so please stop buying from them. And then you can also sign the petition, my petition, this petition as well. And also, if you would like to, keep updated about my effort in being the voice of my brother and being the voice of Uyghurs at large, you can email me. I hope this email easy to remember. myfamilymygifts@gmail.com. Go to the next slide, please. I think it's finished. Yeah, go to the other one. Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't say. Okay, so I had in the last slide, I was going to recommend two books to read. One is Waiting to be Arrested at Night. Another one is Visas Now. Visas Now is by Murdoch, based in New Zealand. In that book, in the last chapter, I included one chapter about what we experience in New Zealand and what New Zealand government can do to support Uyghurs. So I think this is the end of my presentation. I spoke quite fast. I think I didn't go into the deep because of the time. Time is in my mind. So if you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Tino, we'll just
Thank
go
you,
to you.
Rizwangul. Yeah, kapai. Thank you, Anjum. Thank you, Rizwangul. That was really interesting. As I was writing down questions, you were then answering the questions with the next thing that you were saying as well. But I found that really helpful. Can I just also just acknowledge your own family that are caught up in this as well. Your brother, obviously, who has been arbitrarily detained, and the inability to be able to speak with your own family. I can only imagine the hurt, the mamai that comes with all of that, and just really acknowledge your courage as well. And whenever we see somebody who is not alone, I know that there are other Uyghur who are speaking up. However, you do have a really strong voice, and I've come across your voice a number of times now. Do you have community here in Aotearoa? Is there an Uyghur community here that are able to provide you with support as well? I was just thinking about, it's important for us to uplift your voice, not to speak over you and not to speak on your behalf, but to uplift your voice, but also mindful that when it's only one person's voice that's being uplifted, in that space, that you can sometimes also become a target. So I was just thinking about communities that we can also amplify. Yeah, that would be one of my first questions for you.
Yeah, you are very right by saying that, when you become one of the just few voices, you become the target. That is a situation for me. But to be honest, for any Uyghurs who does whatever thing, it is also like in the CCP perspective, it is political, and they have been targeted. But I think the main thing keep me moving is that many Uyghurs are like those who are in the front line is that we feel the responsibility. Yes, we are targeted, but we feel the responsibility. While our brothers and sisters are suffering back home and they can't really speak for themselves, if I don't do anything, that kind of guilt. I
Yeah.
experienced that guilt for 2 years, from 2017 to 2019. That guilt ate me up. So, I mean, when I speak, it actually also heals me. At least I am doing something. My moral
That's right.
duty, my kinship duty, and we are in the free world. Yes, wherever you go, the Chinese long arm is there, but uh, the feeling of the responsibility and the love for your kinship keeps you moving. I mean, we lost everything. The land, even the cemeteries of our fathers and our ancestors, they have been destroyed. Our women have been forced to marry Chinese Han. Our children have been taken away. What else? I mean, if it's not the time for us to act, when? So these kind of thoughts keep me moving. And regarding the community, we have very small community in New Zealand. This is also partially because New Zealand immigration, I mean, imagine in the past 10 years since I came to New Zealand, since 2010, less than 50 Uyghurs have got visa to come to New Zealand.
Thank you.
Usually, like Uyghurs visa got rejected. Even my mother's visitor's visa. Back in 2016, it got rejected. That time, the immigration office had office in Beijing. It could be like, it's just like, because I'm guessing, but why then Uyghurs visas have got rejected, all of them. And hopefully immigration, um, will have some, will consider taking up some Uyghurs, but you never know when it will happen. But again, we have very small number of Uyghur community in New Zealand, and many of them, they don't want to come up front because again, transnational repression, it is real, it is happening. If you speak up, and then your family members may get targeted, you never know, because Chinese government, they have ways to retaliate you. And they treat people differently. Sometimes they select some Uyghur people, they gave them visa, okay, you come and you go, and some of us, for example, I can't go. If I go, they will directly arrest me. No question. There are examples like that. So it's like very like the CCP, how they react for certain cases. We can't predict it. So there's uncertainty, unsafety. So I totally, as a being someone who is in the front line, I totally understand those who are not speaking up.
Can I just, there's a couple of questions that have come in the chat, and so I'll get to those, but I did want to ask the question because this is about US and China tensions, that often people feel that if we're raising these issues, and these are your very real and lived experiences, that we're anti-China and pro-US, right? And so within that context, how would you feel about that sort of situation? Is it to say, that if we want to highlight these human rights abuse issues that are happening in China, that it means that we're supporting US? And either of you feel free to answer that question.
Look, to really, I mean, my responsibility is telling the truth. I can't change people's mind. Some people, they come to me to ask questions because they would like to understand. Some people come to me, ask questions because they would like to emphasize that this is my opinion. I think you are like pro-US, this and that. To be honest, again, my responsibility is telling the truth. It is really depending on people themselves to really see the truth. Come to us, come to such kind of workshops with open-minded, understand it. Yes, many people, including Muslims, they think that US is behind all this because they have tension with China. But can you, how should I say that? US happened to be, I mean, the previous administration, the Trump administration, they happened to be the first to acknowledge this is a genocide. And then several governments around the world, they follow it, and they also acknowledged. But what has more US, did for us? Nothing. I know there are Uyghurs, for example, in USA. They have been waiting for their asylum seekers interview to be arranged for years. I know there are families separated. They haven't united for years now. For example, even if they are family members in other countries than China. If US is really supporting Uyghurs and against China because of the Uyghurs, they should have been opened up some visa pathways to accept the Uyghur refugees. They should have been allocated financial assistance for Uyghurs to resettle in USA. Well, no, there are no such policies over there. It just happened to be that US administration got the information and believed in it, and also paid respect and listen to those testimonies from the camp survivors. Then they based on the fact, they acknowledge the genocide.
Thank you.
We should encourage other governments to do so. If general public keep saying that, oh, because this is US narrative, okay, then please take time to read the reports. Come and listen to us. We are not here just taking up something. Why would we do that?
Tina, did you just want to quickly answer it, and then I'm going to go straight into some really good questions that have come through.
Okay, Angela, I think, I find it hard to not be offended when people reduce lived experience down to political talking points as well. This is why within the Global Indigenous Village, we do uplift people's lived experiences and make time to listen to them, and we don't reduce it down to those political talking points that you're talking about. Of course, anybody would only have to take a cursory glance at the work I've done to know that I'm not pro-US, but that's also a very convenient thing to say as well, is to say, well, then you must be pro-US if you're in any way objecting to the actions of the Chinese state as well. And this is the thing. When I teach in the doctrine of discovery or anti-colonialism or the treaty, people get in various spaces very precious about the larger areas that we're speaking to. So, for instance, Christians might say, well, you're being anti-Christian. No, no, no. We're being anti-Christian supremacist. We're not anti-Christian. We're anti-Christian supremacists. Oh, you're being anti-white. No, no, no. We're not anti-white. We're anti-white supremacist. I'm not even innately against the Chinese state, although I have questions about statehood and nationhood, but I'm not innately against the Chinese state in particular. What we are talking about are oppressive actions by the state and the many different ways in which they try to distract from the conversation of clear human rights abuses. So if you can just put the political partisanship to the side and come back, did they do these things? Are they, there are clear reports from multiple human rights organizations, independent human rights organizations that testify to this, as well as the lived experiences of those on the ground as well. So regardless of what you think this is about, in terms of you thinking that it wouldn't be the first time I was called a colonial shill, but so that's by the way. But what I would say though is that just bring that back, even all of that to the side, even if you accepted that, does that mean that these human rights abuses did not happen? Well, we know that they've happened. I sat in Geneva and listened to independent human rights organizations and Uyghur people also testifying in the Human Rights Council to these abuses happening. So there needs to be an answer and a response to that. And we also need to consider, I think there's a very good question in there around our state response, but we also need to consider what our response is as Indigenous peoples and as New Zealanders as well to this, as this issue and the geopolitical tensions come to bear out. I do have another question, but we'll go to the
let's go to the
group
audience
questions first. Yeah.
So the first question, Rizwangul, someone's asking if you're getting any engagement from the current New Zealand government or ministries about your concerns and questions, and particularly about Mulan.
I have to acknowledge that New Zealand government did approach to Chinese embassy in New Zealand to ask information about my brother. I really appreciate that. They did it several times, but the Chinese embassy always respond that it is not, if it is not New Zealand citizen, we are not giving you any information. If it's Chinese citizen, let the family members come and, get the information herself in China. So this is the response we got. And the response always very arrogant and not thoughtful. Of course, dangerous because I can't go. I mean, if it is clearly that I would be in danger. Enforced disappearance, arrest for any reason. It's always happening here, or it happens in China. This is not only, me saying, even for Chinese people, if Chinese CCP label you as someone that against them, they would find a way to, punish you. So I'm not going back. I wish New Zealand government can do more. But when they say, oh, Melbourne is not New Zealand citizen, what we can do, even though I emphasize that this is not something political, okay? This is not something, as CCP said, internal affairs. This is about human rights. This is about actually like humanitarian aid. This is about my rights as a New Zealanders, my rights of having connection with family has been violated. I need help. But if they say we have only limited capability to do things, what can you say?
So there's a couple of questions here. One that's saying that there's several videos on social media that's showing Muslim other groups practicing freely religion and living in communities in China. So do you think those videos are made up? And also they made the comment, thank you so much for sharing. I hope your people finds peace soon.
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of
So
it?
I think the person is saying that there are videos showing Muslims and other groups practicing their religion freely and living in the communities. And so are they made up, or how accurate are those videos?
I would say they are accurate, probably, because there are Muslims in China from different ethnic backgrounds. We are Uyghurs, but there are also Hui Muslims. In Gansu, for example, there are Muslims from other ethnic background in innerland cities. In Beijing, for example, there are mosques people can freely go and pray. As I mentioned earlier, CCP treat people, individuals differently in their own way. They treat ethnic people differently in their own way, while our mosques are demolished. But the mosques in Gansu, for example, that for Hui people, they're okay. I know even Hui people from East Turkestan, Xinjiang, Sanji, for example, they can, they, their communication with family not impacted. They can go and visit and come back. And even one Hui girl actually asked me, "Can you stop speaking? Because, you know, we go back, we may in danger." But she can go still. No impacted. So that's why, many Chinese, many Hui people, they don't understand, they can't believe that we are experiencing this one because people are treated differently. So as the places, mosques, there are videos, especially like I know there is one influencer. He visits Hui Muslims, mosques, families, their madrasas where their children learn Quran. So they are promoting that way. Okay, freedom of religion is existing in China. Where is the freedom of religion of Uyghurs in China, in East Turkestan? None. I started covering since I came out of China because in China I didn't know really covering is compulsory in Islam. Praying is compulsory in Islam because we don't have that kind of environment. We don't have that kind of education. Now you see millions of Uyghurs detained, right? Most of the detainees, China showed the reason as like you covered, you prayed, you taught Quran. Where is our religion, freedom of religion? We don't have it. So you can't believe those videos that taken in other places than the East Turkestan.
Thank you. Just one last question from the audience, and then Tina had one question, and then we'll wrap up. So I think this question came in the last webinar as well, and it's a very valid point of why there's silence from the Muslim community from around the world, or is it just not reported in New Zealand when other Muslim communities or countries speak up?
It's 20.
There are many reasons for this. I can list out few. First of all, Chinese government strategically have bought elites of Muslim communities, Muslim governments around the world. They bought the elites. This is one thing. That's why how the Muslim got the UN representatives of Muslim countries actually supported Chinese claim at UN. That's also why like groups from the Muslim countries have been organized to visit, showcase the East Turkestan case situation from the CCP's narrative perspective. This is one thing. Second thing is that we have to acknowledge that our voice, Uyghur voice, have been quite challenged, have been quite weak because many things. China, CCP has been invested a lot to misinformation and disinformation. And for us Uyghurs, so like I started speaking in 2020, right? We have limited human resources. We have limited financial capabilities. We have limited platforms to speak about Uyghurs. In front of how much CCP is investing and putting effort in this, like promoting their narratives, our voice become very disadvantaged. So that's why we have limits to reach out audiences. But in even like individual capacity, we keep doing this. Like whenever I speak to Muslim brothers and sisters, once they understand the situation, and then they understand, and then they said, okay, now I understand this is not US narrative. This is something that we need to also take care for.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to quickly read out a comment. It's not a question, from one of the participants saying, I'm Han Chinese. I just want to express my genuine solidarity with the Rizwangul Uyghurs and all colonized and oppressed peoples globally. I'm deeply sorry for what the Chinese government and Han people do to you. We Han Chinese will fight to the end for the freedom of Mulan, all Uyghurs, and the liberation of East Turkestan, free East Turkestan. Palestine.
I really appreciate this comment because, we are oppressed, yes, but to some extent, Chinese people, they are also oppressed. Many Chinese people, they have been brainwashed. They deserve a true freedom. So that's why when I hear these kind of comments, I really see the hope. So thank you for the comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rizwangul, and thank you to the commenter as well. And of course, just as an Indigenous woman, a Ngāti Porou woman, of course, you have my solidarity, and we are all, I know a number of us throughout the Indigenous community are also focused on, particularly those of us who work in the rights space, are focused on growing that solidarity and supporting our brothers and sisters in East Turkestan as well. I wanted to ask, and I was really grateful for you for pointing out Temu and Sheen, and particularly in recent weeks, as the tariff conflict between China and the US started to pick up, and there was on social media a campaign by Chinese nationals who is unclear about the level of CCP involvement behind it, but there was a campaign where they were just saying, just buy direct. It's so much cheaper to buy direct. And there are a number of us pushing people to consider, why is it so cheap? Why is it so cheap to buy these things from China? Because in capitalism, someone always pays. So, there's the forced labor and the slave labor conditions that are an inheritance from Western colonial economic imperialism. We know slave labor is an inheritance from that is operationalized by the Chinese state. But then there's also the raw materials that the Chinese state allows them to import from places like Congo, where the majority of the mining companies are Chinese mining companies extracting and driving a lot of the conflict in other indigenous nations like Congo. So we've been driving these conversations. There is one other area that I wanted to ask you about, Rizwangul, because this is an area that I see many Maori iwi and tech people starting to get involved in. Maybe two. One is the e-batteries and, kind of like green batteries and their construction. The other one, this is a major one, is data centers. Now, we've seen a number of Maori being taken over and New Zealanders being taken over to so-called Xinjiang to look at data centers. And Maori, because we are really concerned around our intellectual property and the Western colonial grip on the internet, that some have been looking at opportunities to build our own data centers and are establishing relationships with China, with Chinese nationals, and with the Chinese government with a view to growing our own data centers. Do you have any information for us on the connection between these data centers and oppression of Uyghur communities as well?
I honestly, I don't have exact, directly related information on this, but I'm sure that Chinese sites are very experienced in setting up databases like something like this. For example, all Uyghurs' DNA has been collected, and there is a database that holds all information about Uyghurs' DNA. So if there is a organ request, okay, especially because Uyghurs are Muslims, so halal organ, like Muslims, if any country, any Muslim, any hospital, they need halal human organ, if they put the request in the Chinese side, so they can match the DNA. And if it matches the Uyghur, you see, this is how the database has been set up and being utilized. So to this extent, so if any matched DNA information, that Uyghur, despite being in the prison or outside, they will be taken and to the hospital and the organs taken out. This is happening. So, I mean, this is one kind of example where a huge database can be set up and misused, and also violating human rights. So my suggestion is that be careful. Be careful, because there are a lot of reports going on about how the high tech is putting communities and even governments in danger, especially when the CCP is behind. So
I'm just looking at the time. So yeah, I think in terms of buying products, I think Rizwangul named two particular companies to watch out for. So, Tina, if you had any last comment, otherwise I might start wrapping up.
Yeah, just he mihi anō ki a koe, Rizwangul. Thank you so much for your courage and your integrity to be able to raise your voice and with such extreme consequences, extreme direct consequences for you and your family in raising your voice. So I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time out to help us with this. I'm hoping this is, for many of us, if it's not the first time you've entered into this conversation, that it's an extension of that conversation, but also that this is not the end of the conversation, that we stay in this conversation with you, and that it's not just a conversation, but actions of solidarity, actions of uplifting your voice as well, and standing in solidarity with you, which I will certainly continue to do, and I'm sure many others on this call will also continue to do as well. So, I runga i tēnā he mihi anō ki a koe, Rizwangul.
Yes, and I'd like to add to that. to thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to be on this webinar. We've really appreciated hearing from you. And hopefully with this webinar and the previous one, we will try and keep circulating those so that people can have that voice. Someone did ask if this webinar will be available since they arrived late. Yes, we are recording it and we will put it up as we get time to do that this week. I also just want to let people know that the copies of the books that you mentioned are in the chat if you want to have a quick look. The two companies that you mentioned, Xian and Timo, are in the chat, as is the link to the first webinar that we did. You know, this is such a difficult topic, and you know, one of the things that we also have to think about, and particularly with countries speaking out or not speaking out, is often the trade relationships outweigh and the aid relationships outweigh a government's willingness to speak out. And we see that with many countries, with India, with other countries where we're seeing human rights abuses, that the trade relationship was considered to be stronger than the fight for justice. So with that, thank you again, everyone who has attended. And I'm just going to pass over to Tina to do a closing karakia.
Bye. Thank you. Unuhia ki turu tapanui kia wātea kia māma te ngāka e te tinana te wairua ki te ara takata. Koekoeā e rongo whakairi ake ki runga kia Tina, haumi e, hui e, tai
Tai
ki e.
ki e. Thank you.
Thank you.